I'm still pretty young. I'm not a kid, by all means. But I'm in my 30s. Sometimes I think about when I get older. I think about when I get to a ripe age, an older age, to the end of my life. And I always wonder, will I look back at my life and think I could have been more radical for Christ? And will I be the guy in my later years of life wondering, was I radical enough? Did I really give this life on earth everything I had to this thing that I believe? You may have thought that thought before. If you haven't thought that thought, maybe you've wondered this: how do I become a radical Christian? How do I live the lives like Ezekiel? He laid on his side, he heard the Lord, and he laid on his side for 390 days, cooking, by the way, over feces. Ugh. How did he do that? How did he become so radical that when God told him to do something so crazy, he did it? Or Paul the Apostle, or Peter, or John, or Moses. There's these guys in the Bible who live radical. How? Because I don't want to get into my later years in life and look back and think to myself, I missed it. I didn't do it like I could have. And I think there's a common denominator with everybody who's radical for Jesus. They waste their life on him. One of my biggest things about not following extremely after Jesus sometimes is my fear of missing out in life. That somewhere, somehow, I'll be radical and I'll lose friends or I'll lose opportunities. And what I do is I hang on to every moment of my life as dear as I can, never letting it go. Paul says this, man, and the scriptures convicted me over and over and over. But in Corinthians, he says, man, we have the resurrected King in our lives, and we should be the most pitied people on earth if none of this is true. What he was saying is that we should be people who dedicate our lives so strongly to the Lord that if this isn't true, we look like we wasted our lives. He's saying we should be radical, and radical people the world will look at and say, you guys are crazy. I know that didn't make a lot of sense, so I want to show you an example really quick. Give me a second. Let me show you something. In my hand, I have grain. I have rice. I have little pieces of earth. And now in my hand, let's just pretend this was all of the life I had, and each grain represented 1 year's time. 1 year. I've already lived a good bit, and I've already lived 32 years, so I need to pull about 32 years here, and I want to throw them on the ground. And if I want to be let's just pretend I'm going to be I'm going to live to I'm 85. That means I have about 53 more grains of rice left in my hand. And this is the thing, if I don't believe in the scriptures fully, and I get caught up in, like I often do, and you often do too, is if I get caught up and I look at my hand and I think I only have this much life left. I don't have a lot. I need to hang on to this. We'll get almost like a poverty mentality that whatever I have, I need to guard with my life. I mean, if all I have in rice is this much, don't you know that I can't waste any of it? And this is the dilemma, isn't it? I have such a little bit of life. I don't want to waste it, God. You better be really convincing for me to lay on my side for an entire year. God, you better be really convincing. But I want to know, how did they just take their life and their time and just throw it at God? How do they just take it and say, God, this is yours? How do they do it? I think I know how. You see, looking at this little bit of rice right here, you better believe I want to guard it with everything I got. If I believe that he promised me something, he promised me eternity. He promised me an unlimited, unfathomable amount of grains of rice, like Paul did, like John or Peter did. Then trading a few years, throwing it to Jesus is easy because the trade-off of this is for this. When you know that you're going to have this many years, when you know that this is the promise to you and I, and can I just say something? This doesn't even compare to eternity. This right here, this is a few hundred, maybe 1,000 years represented here. But I want you to imagine this something for just a second. I want you to imagine something for just a second. I want you to imagine the fields of grain. The fields that go on forever. He's saying, this is what I'm promising you. That every piece of rice in the entire world doesn't even compare to the life I give to you. I give you eternity. You know why it was easy for Paul and Elijah and Ezekiel and Moses and Jesus Christ, our resurrected King, to take his 33 years and throw it to the ground, to throw it at God? To say, I'm throwing everything at you, God. I'm wasting my life. I'm going to be radical. If I get nothing else from this earth, if I don't have pleasure on this earth again, I'm throwing everything at you. You know why that was okay and that was easy? It was because they knew that God was holding this for them. God was holding fields for you. That you and I are promised not 85 years. We're not promised 20 years. We're not promised a year. We're promised forever. You know what makes a radical Christian radical? You know what makes a man like myself know that when I get into my old age, I'll be able to look back and say, I didn't waste my life? It's grabbing a hold of this truth right here. When I'm in my old age, I'll be able to look back, recognizing that when I'm at the end of my rope, that I have an eternity to spend with Jesus. And I can waste every moment with him. I can be radical for him in my young age, in my old age. That wasting my years on this thing called Christianity, that the world will look at me and they'll pity me and say, what a fool, why would you waste your life away for such a foolish idea, is because I know that the King of Kings is offering me this. So this is what I want to do today. I know that you and I have a dilemma. I want to be more radical, and I know why we're not. It's because we have a hard time believing that everything we have today doesn't compare to the eternity that he has for us tomorrow. You know how we fear death? You know why death has a sting? Because it feels like there's an end. The rice is all gone. There is no more sting to that death because he's offered us eternity. So I want to pray over you that you remember this today so you can count it all joy. You may suffer a little bit. You may take the consequences of this world, but can I just promise you this? You have more to live. So God, I pray over my friends that we recognize, Jesus, that we don't just have 1 year, we don't just have 2 years. We have eternity with you, Father. And in this world that we live today, God, may the world look at us and say, oh, what a pitiful God, because we are radical for you, because we've grabbed onto this truth that Jesus, eternity is real. That today is only for the moment, but everything that you have is for eternity. And God, may we grab hold of that, and we recognize that we're not wasting our life when we throw our lives at you. No, rather, we're trading our 85 years for millions and millions and innumerable amount of years. In the names we pray. Amen. I hope this blessed you today. I hope you're encouraged. And guys, if you are, share this with a friend. I love you guys, and live today as if you live forever. See you guys. God bless.